we ask today, as people asked then, what was Home Rule? Had we got Home Rule, we'd have had no say in financial matters or defence matters. Women would have no vote, and only a man that owned a house would have a vote. So that's what Home Rule was. Westport was changing politically in 1914, and as you already said, the volunteers came in, Keane, Common on, Transport Workers Union, and these are all radical movements at the time. And things were changing. There was an undercurrent in Westport. The young men were ready for action. Also in this town, there was the United Irish League. That was the political machine and fundraising machine of the Red Mennonite Party. The men in the town here had a coup d'etat, and they ousted the Conservatives, and the Radicals took over. So that was another indication of the direction we were going. Now, the main advocates for Home Rule were the cattle ranchers, the gentry, some merchants, and the clergy. These people also fronted the big recruiting drives for the British Army at the time. In Westport, the recruiting meetings were held up there at the Octagon, and it was usually the parish priest who chaired the meetings. And the speakers would exhort all the young, gullible men to go and join the British Army. On one occasion, they wheeled in the famous Mike O'Leary. Mike O'Leary had been granted the Victoria Cross for his exploits against the Germans. But when Mike O'Leary came with his bag of shiny shillings to get recruits, only one man came forward that day. And he said to O'Leary, he said, "I'll join the Navy, but I won't join the Army." So that sent him flying. In the aftermath of the rising, a commission was held in London to examine all the aspects of the troublesome Irish. And when it came to speak about the recruiting in Ireland, a gentleman stood up and he said, "Of all the towns in Ireland," he said, "Westport was the pits." They were his very words. There was no recruits coming forward from Westport. The rising came, and with it the executions and the great roundup of the disloyal subjects. 31 men and youths from Westport were taken away to imprisonment in England and Scotland. These internments turned the people against the Red Mennonite Party and Home Rule. And that was the start of the demise of the Irish Parliamentary Party. The remnants of this party, they lay low. They avoided the great national struggle of 1919 to 1921. But they surfaced again, some of them, and found a home in a new party that came out of the Civil War. Now, you've already stolen my thunder with all the information on the internees, but I picked out a few internees who merit special consideration. Joe McBride was the most important man around these places. Here is a man, back in those days he didn't even have a bicycle, but he was known all over the county in every area for his IRB activities. And he was the first brigadier of the volunteers in Mayo. And he was interned 3 times, 1916, 1917 and 1920. And he was made a TD when he was in prison, and he became a TD again for Cumann Gael in 1922. And to his eternal credit, I'm told, he never voted for the execution policies of 1922, and that was to his credit. In 1923, he took a trip down to Achill on the train to do some constituency business, and he was captured by the local Republicans in Achill. Now, at that time, the executions were going full steam ahead, and he thought he was in for it, but consideration was given to him because he hadn't voted for the execution policy at the time. He was a pretty old man then, and I was reading through his pension application forms,